Hi boys and girls, Miss Reichert here. Chapter 20, part 2 is what I'm going to be reading to you today. Trolls smell, but they also smell. When it was time to sleep, I learned that the trolls didn't have houses or sleep under any kind of covering. I asked them what they did in the rain and snow. Slop looked at me funny and said, "We let it fall." Mard piled dry grass on the ground for me and then covered me with giant leaves and had soft fuzz on them, so they were quite cozy. "You'll be safe here," she said. Exhausted as I was, it was impossible to sleep. The trolls snored like thunder, and their stench only got worse through the night. Troll farts, I discovered, are 100 times smellier than the human kind. But it wasn't really the snores or the smells that kept me awake. I kept thinking of the pile of magical objects and how trolls could smell magic. They could smell it on me, and they kept a hoard of magical things hidden away from humans. It could be that my stiltskin was right here among the trolls. Silently, I slipped from beneath my bed of leaves and tiptoed over to a hole. It was covered again. I shoved aside some of the leaves and reached inside. My hand fell on the heart first, but I quickly put that down. If I brought it out, the magic might wake the trolls. I didn't see how it could help me anyhow. Of course it was magical, but was it a stiltskin? Did it grow from magic? I touched the boot and brought it out. It was old and worn with patches and holes. Just a boot. I wondered what would happen if I put it on. I almost stuck my foot inside when I heard a loud grumble and snort. Slop was sitting next to the tree right above the hoard. "A 7-league boot," he said, "made by a witch and beyond. Take one step in that, and you'll be all over the mountains." "Oh, well, that would be useful. I could get to yonder in a blink with this boot, and I could run away from more trouble as it came along." "Useful?" snorted Slop. "For each step you'll get a horrible itch that will last for 7 years. The last chap who wore the boot has been itching for 20 years. We only got the one boot off of him. He's still wearing the other and still itching." I held the boot cautiously away from me. 7 years of itching would surely drive a person mad. Do all these objects cause bad things? "All of them," said Slop. "That mirror, for instance, it will tell you or show you whatever you want." My heart leapt. I could ask the mirror my name. It could show me where I could find a stiltskin. "But it will enslave you more and more," said Slop, "until all you care about is yourself in the mirror. It makes humans twisted and evil." My heart sank. I did not wish to be twisted and evil, just whole. Carefully, I slid the boot back beneath the leaves, and for a moment I thought I caught a smell of magic, as the trolls had said. It did smell sweet, but it also slightly rotten, like spoiled fruit. My mind turned back to the apple tree. Those apples never spoiled. They grew from magic, more than anything in the magical hoard. It was the apple tree that sounded like a stiltskin. I turned to Slop. "So then, the apple tree, have you ever really seen what its magic can do?" I asked. "Of course," he said, "and it's terrible magic." He knocked on his helmet. "Borg said that deer was killed by wolves." "Well, I never saw wolves. I found the deer dead right by the tree." "But you didn't actually see the deer eat the apples? Have you ever known a person to eat them?" Slop's face curdled up like sour milk, and he pointed a fat, hairy finger down at me. "Now listen here, you. I know there's something strange about you. You got a funny smell, different from most humans. But those apples got a funny smell too. Trouble. We trolls know it when we smell it. Those apples aren't meant to be eaten, so you just stay away. Understand?" I nodded and backed away from Slop and the hoard. I told him good night and pretended to go back to the camp. But when he was out of sight, I slipped into the darkness of the trees. I wandered until I found the apple tree. The apples glowed in the darkness, like sparkling jewels growing out of branches. This was absolutely magic, and judging by what the witch had told me, Not just any magic, a stiltskin. I could almost smell it, feel it in my bones. But according to the troll, it was a stiltskin that grew from poison. I walked around the tree. I took a stick and threw it against the trunk. I reached out, touched one of the branches, and then quickly drew back as though the leaves might burn me. They didn't. Finally, I walked up close and put my hand on the trunk. The tree was so warm, I almost thought I could feel it pulsing with life. I swung up and hoisted myself into the branches. Maybe if I stayed here long enough, the magic would rub off on me and make everything better. I waited for a long time, maybe an hour. I felt nothing. Finally, I reached out and picked an apple. I brought it up to my face. So perfectly smooth, so red. I wondered what Red would say about these apples. She would probably knock the apple from my hand and tell me to leave magic alone. It would only cause trouble, maybe even death, if the apple was really poison. I didn't want to die. I let the apple fall to the ground, then swung down from the branches and leaned against the trunk. I listened to the deep thrum of the apple tree, which echoed my own heart. Sleep came just as the sky was growing light. Slop poked me awake with his deer horns. I sniffed my way right to you, he said. You must be more trouble than our whole horde combined. Slop dragged me back to the camp, where the rest of the trolls were waking. They grunted and rubbed their eyes and scratched under their hairy arms. Mard was stirring a bubbling pot of sludge with one hand, the other hand full of wiggling worms. You never told us your name. We'd like to know it. I almost told her. My name was Robert. But then I thought if trolls had names like Bork and Slop, Rump wouldn't be so bad. Rump, I said. Mard grunted her approval. Finest human name I've ever heard. They always got so romantic and sentimental, she said, as if she were talking about some other creatures and not my own kind. Giving names as if their children were something fancy to eat. Bartholomew, Archibald, Reginald, Fishhead, or whatever. It's nonsense. All you need is a sound to distinguish one from the other. She yelled out to two trolls who were just about my size. Gorp! Grot! Out of the stream and into the mud. But what about destiny, I said. Mard snorted. Less is always more. She threw the worms into the pot and then scooped up a cup and handed it to me. I stared at my moving drink. Do you ever eat anything else? I asked. Sludge is good for you. Simple to cook, and it makes you strong and wise. Humans, they make everything complicated, even food. Doesn't life ever get complicated for trolls? Marge shook her head. When trolls were enslaved by humans, maybe. But we don't worry about a lot of things humans fuss over. Simple needs make a simple life. Simple. They couldn't possibly understand how complicated things already were for me, both inside and out. It's hard to make simple out of complicated, like trying to make a straight line out of a tangled knot. You don't even know where to start. I drank sludge with the trolls. It wasn't so bad the second time. And then Slop threw a mud ball, and it splattered all over Bork's face. Bork threw mud back. Then the rest joined in, and mud was flying everywhere. I thought that might be a good time for me to get on my way, but I got pelted with a mud ball, and I couldn't just stand there, so I hurled one back, and then Gorp and Grot threw me into a mud puddle. I laughed as they rolled me in the mud, and I saw now why they bathed in it. The mud smelled better than they did. Now that I was certain the trolls wouldn't eat him, I brought nothing into the camp. He was still on the road eating grass. The trolls snorted with delight, especially Bork, who took him in right away. Amazingly, nothing did what Bork wanted. He walked without being pulled. Bork rode on him, and nothing moved. He likes my sounds, said Bork. It makes him feel like we're equals. I guess I would have to start snorting and grunting if I wanted to get anywhere with nothing. But then I had a better idea. You can keep him, I said. I know he's not a goat, but he'll be happy here, and I can travel faster without him. Bork rubbed Nothing on the neck and smiled, showing yellow pointy teeth. It is a big trade for a cup of sludge. Well, and saving me from eating poison apples. Bork grunted, and I took that was a yes. I untied my satchel from Nothing, then patted his rump and told him goodbye. He hawed, and I guess he was saying good riddance. I made my goodbyes. Some of the trolls tried to convince me to stay one more night, but I didn't think I could eat any more sludge, and I was too tired. I couldn't put up with their snores and smells for another night. Take some sludge for your journey, said Mard, handing me a small jug. Maybe it will help make things a little simpler for you. Oh, thank you, I swallowed and gagged. Thank you for not eating me. They all grunted and snorted, and even though I knew they were laughing, it still sounded horrible. With my satchel slung over one arm and the sludge in my other hand, I headed down the road toward yonder. I felt a little envious of the trolls and their simple life. My destiny didn't allow for simple. What was behind me and what was ahead of me felt like nothing but snarled knots of complicated. And that is the end of chapter 20. Bye.